I know you're gonna dig this.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, welcome to another fun-filled, fun-packed episode of Conversations About ... My name is Will, and I have the always wonderful, always awesome Roscoe Bros with me. Say hello.
Hello again, Will.
Hello.
It's us again, the Roscoe Brothers. I'm, of course, Jingles Roscoe.
I'm Spider Roscoe. Big shocker to no one.
That's okay, because today the big shock is we're talking about the Batman. We're going to get into some Batman stuff. I do want to get into a slight bit of, quote, controversy. I don't want to stay here too long. One, because this guy that said this should be punched in his face by a whole bunch of people. That's just me. I'm not normally prone to violence, but the stuff this guy said to me is dumb. But I gotta kind of address it because from an emotional standpoint, I naturally
have to react to it.
Yes,
because someone said something stupid.
Well, and in this case, it's not like me just thinking it's dumb. So this is what the guy had to say. So this is, so this guy on here, his name is Ryan Keenel, and he did this movie review of The Batman on Twitter, and then he did it on his YouTube channel as well. And so here is the statement in question. Now, the whole video is about 8 minutes, and he says a lot of different weird stuff about it overall. But this particular part is what hit me the hardest. There are only a couple of good people in this movie, Kino says in his review. You had Bruce Wayne, Batman, and you had Alfred. Those are the only two good white people. The rest of the really three other major players that I would consider just overall moral good people you had Jim Gordon, who's black in this, and you had Catwoman, who was not white in this, and then you had the mayor, who is a black woman. Again, so very much on the nose for the current Hollywood. Did not like that. So that's what he had to say about the thing. Now, first things first, that's paraphrased, because I heard the actual video, and he didn't just say that. He also talked about the fact that the media, they're trying to do this woke thing, because he talked about Catwoman making a statement about these rich white people that don't care about anybody but themselves. And I'm like, but look at the people she's talking about. Like, that's a fair descriptor in that case. Mm-hmm. Because they all are white. In that instance, I mean, her pointing that out is not an odd thing. I mean, if you look at the actual fact, I mean, it's there. But first things first, I'm like, Zoe Kravitz is black. Like, I know there's some other stuff going on from a genetic standpoint because her dad is Lenny Kravitz and her mother is Lisa Bonet. And I know they're not, quote, pure black. They have stuff going on in them as well. But it's like, overall, I'm pretty sure Zoe Kravitz identifies as a black woman. As a matter of fact, she talked about the fact that when they were doing The Dark Knight Rises, she actually auditioned for the role of Catwoman in that movie, but she was told she was too ethnic to play Catwoman in that movie. And so she didn't even get the opportunity to audition for the role because they said she looked too ethnic for it. And so Anne Hathaway got it instead. And of course, I'm like, well, first of all, why is it this now coming out? Like, I kind of wonder why that wasn't something that came out then. But then to have this reviewer come out and basically talk about the only two good white people in this movie are Bruce Wayne and Alfred. And I'm like, what about the maid? Like, she wasn't a bad human being. She didn't seem manipulated at all. Although I'm still trying to figure out who that is. But, like, Alfred has a maid? That's pretty awesome. Like, in the movie. But I feel like it was kind of weird because, and Jingles, now I'm going to throw this to you because Zoe Kravitz is not the only black woman to have ever played Catwoman.
No. Not even in live action.
Right. So I want Jingles to kind of share that with us a little bit. And I dropped some news on his lap, and I want him to kind of share that information.
I mean, I don't have all the names here. I just have pictures.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought it had text on the names of the people.
It does. Oh, no. Yeah, I can scroll through. I found it.
Okay.
I just have to go to each individual picture to see them.
Ah, gotcha.
So somebody went ahead and posted a list of every black woman who has either voiced or played Catwoman on screen. Obviously, one of the most well-known one, the lovely Miss Eartha Kitt.
Mm-hmm. Rest in peace.
In Batman 67. And so, black woman, obviously. Halle Berry in the Catwoman movie. Okay, was black in that. Zoe Kravitz was also Catwoman in the Lego Batman movie.
Mm-hmm.
So she just keeps getting it. Cree Summer was Catwoman in DC Superhero Girls. Sana Lathan in the Harley Quinn show.
Yeah, that's the actress that was in Love and Basketball. That's probably her most well-known role. I know she's done a lot of other stuff since then, but that's always the role that I first saw her in.
Mm-hmm. Naya Rivera was in the animated Batman Long Halloween animated movie.
I haven't seen that
Anika
one.
Noni Rose was Catwoman in the Injustice animated film. And
Which-
then obviously Zoe Kravitz from the Batman.
So, one of the things this guy talked about was race swapping. And how he was just like, I don't like the fact that they're race swapping these characters. And I'm like, but again, it's like the race of the character has nothing to do with the character. Like, for example, whether Catwoman's black or white or Asian or whoever, the role is more about the character that they're playing, not necessarily their ethnicity. Like, their ethnicity in and of itself has nothing to do with who the character is. Jim Gordon's the same way. I mean, you look at Jim Gordon. I mean, I feel like, personally, the guy that played Jim Gordon played it really well, especially for that movie. And so we'll get into that more in our review of it. But I just feel like this guy just had a really bad take on it. I don't know why he felt the need to, at one point, say, well, when Catwoman makes this statement about these white people and how it set him off because he didn't feel like they needed that descriptor. It could have just been privileged people. But then the next thing out of his mouth is where he's talking about the only two good white people in this thing are Batman and Alfred. So that's my thought on it. You guys got any thoughts on that before we get out of this and go into the review?
My thought on it is that it's very dumb. And people, look, this is the state of Hollywood now. People are going to be cast in roles that traditionally were for non-people of color. So white people. And it's just going to be a thing. And the thing that I really don't mind is when it's like an animated thing. I don't mind that. I'm super okay with that. Live action, it can go back and forth. I honestly don't. Yeah, I don't have any complaints for any of the people of color that have taken on the roles of certain characters, especially in all these comic book movies. Mm-hmm. I was like Heimdall. That you won't see me complaining about seeing Idris Elba as Heimdall.
Right.
And like, I don't think Idris Elba should be every person. I think Idris Elba fits certain roles better than others. So if it just doesn't feel like a correct casting, it's usually from like an acting standpoint for me, rather, or like a visual standpoint for me. Like when people were all mad that Heath Ledger was going to be the Joker, and then he ended up being the best Joker. It's like, we got to give him a chance. I didn't like when they cast Batman for the Snyderverse. But it was like, oh, most people are fine with him now. His name is eluding me.
Talking about Ben Affleck?
Ben Affleck, thank you. I was like, there was a blank spot in my brain.
Well, I mean, it could have been worse. We could have been talking about Daredevil. Could he play Daredevil too?
I wasn't. He was fine as Daredevil.
Okay, fair
Literally
enough.
nobody complained about him being Daredevil. Everybody complained about him being Batman.
I
That's
complained about
fine,
him being
okay.
Daredevil because I didn't really like him in that role, but that's just me. So.
Yeah,
Complained about it
Just
after
you.
watching it. We're
Yeah,
talking
after
about
watching it.
beforehand.
I got you.
All right, come on. And so, yeah. And like, I still don't love him as Batman, but I don't hate him as Batman.
Okay.
And like, I feel like there's some characters that there's very little chance that they're gonna swap their race, and usually it's like the main characters, and like Batman, Wonder Woman, or Superman. They're very likely to stay as white people on the big screen. But there might be some others that show up on like smaller screen things, like TV shows or something like that. And usually it's done. It's a different character that they've introduced. Obviously, we know that we have a black Spider-Man, and that's Miles Morales. It's not Peter Parker. So, it's just that's the thing that's happening now, and I don't dislike it. I'm fine with it. And as long as the character is good and the actor does a good job, you won't get any complaints out of me.
And that's really important to think about. Now, Spider, what are your thoughts on this?
I think it's really important to, how do I phrase this? Not over-engage with stuff like this. Because ultimately, the reviews have been coming in very well for the Batman. And as it should. However, I know that we're going to be getting a lot of different times where we're going to be finding somebody still nitpicking at something that, to be perfectly honest, even the argument itself feels dated at this point. Like, it feels like this was something, like if this was, I don't know, 2010, if it was just 2012, this would be a hot take. And it would be a hot take that would actually get everybody talking. But kind of like what Jingles was saying, the shift in Hollywood has already been going over the past decade.
Right.
And it's obviously not showing any signs of slowing down. So the idea of providing any sort of space to somebody who's basically getting up on their own personal soapbox about this doesn't really feel like worth our time. That being said, yeah, obviously I disagree with the guy because we've already have facts of what they're talking about to provide our point of stance to the contrary. What I'm really just sort of, I guess, blasé about is the need to feel like we need to engage this and have some sort of stance on this without our stances being pretty obvious about this. This was a statement thrown out by somebody that either one, clearly didn't do any research on this, or two, knows better and is deciding to make a controversial statement simply for the sake of somebody coming in to engage with it, i.e. us. So my stance is just not to engage with it. You guys know me, so I don't think you need to guess at what I feel about this. But since, there's hopefully listeners and people that don't know who I am or what I'm all about, yeah, I disagree with this. It's stupid, and it can be easily proven incorrect.
Okay. And I feel like we've done that pretty well just in a short little bit of time. So let's get into the movie. What did y'all love about it? What did you hate? What did you, is there anything? Was there a question?
Shoot.
Stuff like that.
You actually just reminded me, Will.
Oh.
Still part of the movie, still part of the conversation.
Yep.
Last thing on this. As soon as I heard that line in the film, after the movie was done, I turned to Jingles and I said, someone's going to get miffed about that. Mm-hmm. Someone's going to make a whole video about it. And I was rolling my eyes already in fully intent to not engage with that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So, no, none of this comes as a surprise to me. And a controversial take is, you know what? This will be a controversial take right here. Controversial takes like this are a dying breed.
Okay.
And it's just somebody kicking and screaming against the system that is already sort of left them behind. Or, it's somebody that just wants to have some sort of notoriety. Let's not forget, controversy sells.
Yep.
True.
And anger sells. So if somebody can end up capitalizing on that, they're making a good paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. And I just want to, before we move on, just wanted to say, when I heard the line in the movie, I was all like, okay, well, that's fine. Like, I was all like, I was kind of annoyed by it, but not enough to be all like, oh, there's some sort of like agenda for this whole movie, blah, 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 blah. I was just all like, all right, Catwoman. I mean, I can see why you would say something like that.
Mm-hmm. And from a character standpoint, it makes sense for her to say something like that at that particular moment.
Yeah.
Because of what's happening. Like I said, we're going to get into that more when we actually go into the review. But, it works with the character for her to feel this way. Because she's not, what's the word? She's not emotionally centered at this point, if you will. Okay, she's very upset because of things that happened during the course of the film. And so she's not in a place emotionally to have a rationalized thought as it relates to the whole situation. She's got a side. She has an agenda, but it's definitely not, quote, race specific.
Mm-hmm.
It's more of she's angry because of stuff that's happened. So she's not necessarily thinking, she's not being portrayed as somebody who's thinking rationally.
Right.
So. But anyway, let's get into the movie. First things first, I'm going to say this right off the bat. The score, I loved the score specifically. Not so much
sinister, isn't it?
Yeah, it is the thing. I understand the runtime. A lot of people have a big complaint about the runtime. Oh, it's 3 hours. It's a lot of runtime. I'm like, here's the thing. It really didn't feel like I was there for 3 hours. Because the whole time I was in the movie, I was engaged in trying to figure out the mystery behind it. I was trying to figure out who was doing it, who the Riddler was, what was going on, what kind of rabbit. Like, I love that idea that in a, quote, superhero movie, you spend the majority of the movie trying to figure out who did it and who's doing it. Like, you feel like you're more there. Now, yeah, you had your action scenes. Of course, I'm going to say this right now. Pattinson did his thing. Okay, Robert Pattinson did his thing as far as I'm concerned. Like, he did just enough with the vocal twitch to kind of make his voice a little bit different when he was Batman and how he said things. I love that. I appreciate the fact that I didn't appreciate his hair specifically, but then I had to remind myself this is Batman year 2. So he may not have had all this stuff quite together yet. There are moments in the movie where it's obvious, like, this doesn't feel like the Batman, the mature Batman who has a plan for everything. Because sometimes he just ran into the middle of danger. And so I thought that was interesting that they played it that way, because I was like, the temptation with Batman especially is to play it like he's always kind of known what he's doing. And I'm glad that they didn't play it that way in this movie. I'm glad that they played moments like he walks up into the club at one point, the Iceberg Lounge. He just walks right in there, and I'm going, when would Batman do that? Like, why would Batman just go straight in there as he was, beat the guys down, and then walk through there, and then pick the fight in the middle of the thing, and all this other stuff? I'm just like, that doesn't feel like Batman. But I'm like, wait a minute, this is not Batman. Seasoned Batman has been doing this for a while. This is the second year of him being Batman. Like, he's making mistakes, and I appreciate seeing him make mistakes and mess up and be impulsive. And, the whole, when he tells Alfred, I don't care about anything else. This is my legacy. If I don't fix the city, then it doesn't matter. None of anything else really matters. And I'm just like, wow, that doesn't sound like Batman either. Like, I mean, but it does. Like, there's this weird, twisted version of the mission idea. And so I really enjoyed it. I really was trying to figure out who was doing what, who the Riddler was. I was trying to figure out how they kept throwing out a lot of red herrings, which I thought was really cool, because in a mystery, you want that. You want people to kind of go, wait a minute, is this person? Could it be this person? Could it be? You know what I mean? So I really enjoyed that. So I'm gonna let y'all talk a little bit about what y'all enjoyed about the movie.
Let me tell you about the Riddler, man. I love this version of the Riddler.
Oh, Smiter's a big fan of the Riddler in general.
Yeah, he's my favorite. He's my favorite of the Rogues Gallery. And
Joker, whack.
Joker,
whack.
broke. Riddler, woke. Because Riddler... and the more classical versions of the Riddler, I've always enjoyed the conniving nature that he's putting his own intelligence forward.
Mm-hmm.
Because in his mind, and this is sort of technically true, he is the ultimate mental challenge for Batman. Because every one of his rogues gallery represent a different kind of challenge. Challenges of duality, challenges of sexuality, challenges of chaos versus order, and they all represent all this stuff beautifully. I've always enjoyed the Riddler because of how much smarter he thinks that he is than he thinks he is over Batman. And I was sort of expecting that right out of the get-go with this version of the Riddler, and it felt like that for most of the film until, I would say, the last half hour where Riddler is captured and he reveals to the audience that he doesn't hate Batman. Batman's not getting his way. He, one, admires Batman and thinks that he's on Batman's team now. And I love that absolute disconnect between reality and his own fantasy that he's weaved for himself. I love it. Riddles were fun, and just like any good reinterpretation of a DC or a Batman villain, is that their gimmick still needs to show up.
Mm-hmm.
Joker still needs to make jokes. Instead of just grabbing Common by the head and telling him, "Oh, you don't want no beef? You don't want no beef? Or I'm gonna hurt you real bad." I'm waiting for a joke at any time in this, sir.
I'm very funny.
Well, I'm damaged. It's on my forehead. And to hear Riddler actually doing riddles, and I'm sitting there, I'm all like, "This is my favorite part." All right, Batman, let me think. And he's like, "It's justice." I was like, "Batman, I almost had it." This is why Riddler gets mad all the time. And the absolute unhinged nature that they gave him, I thought was really fun and really scary. Because this version of the Riddler is different. I mean, beyond the obvious stuff like his aesthetic. But when it comes to his personality and his motives, Riddler is usually there to try to feel like he's lording over Batman and psychologically torture Batman by showing him, "I'm so much smarter than you." And of course, Batman ends up proving him wrong, and Riddler always accuses him of cheating. He did something wrong. And I think you need to sprinkle this. You can't have Riddler do this all the time, but you can sprinkle in a little bit of times just to make it extra juicy. When Batman thwarts a Riddler plot, we also find out that Riddler was cheating and gaming the system against Batman. Mm-hmm. But Batman still won. And in Riddler's mind, "No, I did everything right. Like I'm so much smarter and I should know how to do this." Batman clearly cheated and he used underhanded tactics. What was neat is that the motivations for this one, because he's basically on Batman's side in his mind, he's not trying to show that he's smarter than Batman. He's kind of stringing Batman along with all these clues and misdirections to basically get him to a point where they can both sit down and he can have a team up. Let's not forget, when Riddler was actually captured, what was the first thing he did when he saw Batman.
He smiled.
He smiled really big, like somebody seeing their hero for the first time. And that's when it was all starting to come full circle. And I just appreciate the Riddler. Obviously, the Riddler was my favorite part. The Batmobile I thought was really great. As soon as that bad boy was revving up and you hear the lights kick on, and you see the lights kick on, and it starts shaking in place. Mm-hmm. I leaned over to Jingles. I was like, it's so angry. This is easily the angriest I've ever seen the Batmobile. And I like that. I like that a lot.
And it's a lot more grounded. I don't know what model of car that was, but I want one.
Yeah.
If I could get one big enough to fit me where I could get into it comfortably, I want one so bad.
Yeah. Because in the Batmobile, the previous installments, like in the Nolan trilogy, the Batmobile was more like a tank. Mm-hmm. And in the Snyderverse, the Batmobile was more like a high-tech armament. And in this one, the Batmobile is it's a souped-up Charger, but it's the angriest little car you'll ever see. Mm-hmm. And I love it. Probably my favorite sequence is when Batman has to fight a whole bunch of goons down a pitch black hallway, and it's only illuminated by the muzzle flare from their guns. Mm-hmm. And there's just plenty of shots where he's just walking forward and they're shooting him, and he looks like a Terminator. And that was another that was a detail that I didn't know I wanted. I'm not sure how long they're going to keep that because everybody has this idea that Batman must be evasive. Batman must have it all figured out. I like this idea that this young Batman, one, looks and probably feels invincible, like all young people do. I'm going to pass it off to Jingles.
Oh, man. There was so much I liked about this movie. I wasn't sure I was going to like this movie from the trailers and the build-up to it because, there's so much of an obsession with let's make it grounded and gritty and realistic.
Right.
I thought for sure it was going to be an R-rated movie.
Yeah.
And then we got there and I was like, oh, PG-13? Okay. But that was the impression I got from, the trailers and the way that as Mr. Sunday Movies calls it, Raw Bat and Bat. How he
Raw Bat Bat and Bat?
Bat and Bat, yeah.
Oh, wow.
The way that he was beating up thugs and doing things in the trailers,
uncorking a little too much on people.
Right. I was like, I don't know. I didn't.
Good job, Batman. Batman.
You're done. It's okay.
Batman.
Good
okay,
job,
stop.
Batman.
Stop punching him. It's okay.
And they really pushed, I think, the envelope as far as PG-13 goes.
Yeah.
They made good use of their one F-bomb.
Yep.
Made sure that they got it done in the first 10 minutes.
As soon as it slid out, Jingles leaned over to me. He's like, "Yep, that's it. That's the one.
That's the one. It's the one you get." Oh, by the way, Billy and Dom on the Friendship Onion.
Yeah.
They have a running thing.
Yeah.
Where fans write in, because Lord of the Rings was PG-13. All three of them were PG-13.
Yeah.
They were technically allowed one F-bomb.
Yeah.
They're like, where could we have put it? And so fans just, send in quotes with the F word in there somewhere.
Nice.
Anyway.
Excellent economic use of the F-bomb.
Exactly. I was especially happy that we didn't have to see Thomas and Martha die again.
We thought for sure right before it started, Jingles was all like, "Place your bets, boys.
Place your bets, boys. Are we going to see it again?"
And you know what? I was right.
You were right.
You were right.
You got it.
I won my bison dollars.
He won his 50 bison dollars.
Sweet.
And yeah, it was. I enjoyed it a lot. I really did like the movie a lot. And listening to the reasons why other people like the movie also made me go, yeah, I appreciated that as well. I didn't think about it too much until just now. Because when I go in to watch a movie for the first time, I always go in just being all like, okay, let's see how I feel about it. And then afterwards, I'll try and go back and watch it again and actually like break down the reasons why I feel the way that I feel. Right. Which we haven't done. We can't. Well, we're not Mr. Moneybags that can go and rewatch a movie in the theaters more than once.
Mm-hmm. We're not Mr. Connections that can get multiple review copies of something.
Yeah, we're not like that. We're just fans of the product and
we're
have
just,
to use our money.
We're
our
nothing.
money.
Nobody's from nowhere, so we have to make do.
That's right. And but I really enjoyed a lot of the stuff. I was like, when I first saw the Batmobile in the trailers, I was all like, I don't know if I like that.
Mm-hmm.
But immediately when he started it, and you can hear that thing roar, and you hear it just like
that thing sounds hungry.
I was like, oh, I'm 100% down with this Batmobile. And especially like the way that it was like, it plowed through a cinder block tube.
Yeah.
And without slowing down.
Yeah.
And it without taking damage.
It's like
I was like, okay, so it's reinforced.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
But
good.
and there's like a full clip unloaded into the window, and all it did was splinter and catch the rounds. That feels pretty spot on.
Yeah. It was really good.
Mm-hmm.
And obviously we talked about it before, but I didn't really have any doubts when it came to Robert Battenbat. I was expecting him to do at least fine,
Right.
and he did very well.
Mm-hmm.
And I enjoyed that.
Mm-hmm.
I remember watching a review of The Dark Knight Rises, and they were saying like this is probably the Batman movie with the least amount of actual Batman in it.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of just Bruce trying to fix himself and get back into the game and then be Batman again.
Yeah.
Whereas the Batman, it's the polar opposite.
Yeah.
It's almost all Batman.
Yeah.
With a little bit of Bruce Wayne.
The pendulum has swung.
Yes. And I was totally fine with that. Obviously, when movies try to be darker and grittier and more realistic, most of the time it's something that I do not enjoy. Like I've said before, I don't like the Joker movie.
Mm-hmm.
Not because it's bad. It's a very well made movie and it's very well acted, very well scored. It's a terrific film. But I don't like it because of how dark, gritty, and depressing it
Pretty
makes me.
hopeless it is.
It's kind of hopeless.
Yeah.
But that's not the case for the Batman. And
how crazy is that? How
yeah.
they planted on the end.
Yeah, it was very good. And I don't have a whole lot of complaints for it, but I'll bring those up when we get around to what we didn't like about it.
Yeah.
But overall, man, that was a very good movie.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it a lot.
By the way, just a fun, quick trivia fact. So the vehicle, according to the set dresser, was supposed to be based on a 1970 Plymouth Barracuda with a Ford Triton V10 engine mounted on the back. So it's and they said it's actually a prop car with a custom body, but that was what they were trying to build for when they built the Batmobile that Pattinson drives in the movie.
Mm-hmm.
So
it was pretty dope.
Oh, it was awesome. Now that hum of I thought to myself, like when you see there's that moment where Penguin's getting chased and he's like, he starts laughing because he thinks he's got away. And then all of a sudden here comes the Batmobile coming through the fire as the trailers and all that just blowing up, and behind him he's just like, this guy's crazy. And I'm just like, yeah, but that Batmobile is a beast in and of itself. Like it almost had its own character. Like, it was just like, you're just like, oh, this dude is relentless. Like, that's a beautiful character beat, too. Because he's like, he wasn't letting anything stop him from the point. And that was just beautiful, I thought.
You know,
Yeah.
I think about that scene when the Batmobile hits the ramp and goes over, and it's all from like looking at the Penguin, and you see it jumping in the background. It honestly reminded me very, very heavily of Last Action Hero.
Oh, yeah.
When Jack Slater's driving, and in the background you see the van hit that ramp and explode.
It just spins out.
Yeah. And it's played for like it does like a backflip
Yep.
and like crashes and explodes. It's shot very similarly to that.
Right.
Yeah, but I think one of the interesting things too is really the character of Bruce Wayne. And I'm gonna tell you this right now. First of all, whoever did the makeup for Colin Farrell should get an Oscar for that makeup job.
That was amazing.
His transformation, not just from a standpoint of the facial stuff, but just the body type and everything, is so not Colin Farrell. But he was able to play this wholly different person, just this deviant thug, kind of full of himself. The whole hey, I'm Oz. Obviously, you're everything that they say you are. This type of thing. Come, let's have a sit down and have a talk. It's like, dude, he's so slimy. But, like, it's so brilliantly portrayed. Like, I was just like, oh. And then John Toretto as Falcone. I was just like, dude, this dude is, like, the thing that's funny is, with the exception of Jim Gordon, pretty much everybody's in, almost, well, till the end you find out, but I mean, nearly a lot of the people in Gotham are on the take. And it's just beautiful how they portray this idea that there are good cops, there are good people. That, yeah, it doesn't look like a hopeful situation, but there are good people who can rise above the talk of the city and be better. You know what I mean? Like, because there's that point when he's bringing Falcone out into the light and speaking into Snyder's whole thing about the way that the Riddler was. Man, the Riddler was such a puppet master. It wasn't even funny. How, like, he was pulling strings the whole time, even after he was, quote, arrested. I will say that the Riddler felt like a bit more school shooter vibe. A little bit. But then he was just out. Like, he was playing chess against predominantly people that were playing checkers. And a lot of them were definitely pawns. Yeah.
He was essentially the Zodiac killer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which it's interesting, too, because you look at this movie, like a lot of people are saying, oh, well, this is definitely shades of Batman Long Halloween, which it starts on October 31st of that year. The only thing about the Long Halloween is it lasts a year. So we know we're getting more of this because that's the whole thing. A lot of these players and stuff like that, we're going to get these other players that were in the rogues gallery of Batman before it's all said and done with. If Matt Reeves is going to continue this portion, but there are also things that were inspired by Batman Year 1. There were little nods to Batman Year 2, even and Batman Year 0. There are a lot of different little comic book Easter eggs that, again, if you've not read those, it's not going to matter. The movie was still well done. But if you have read those books, then it's just like, oh, wait a minute, I recognize this. Like when Selina's in costume at a couple of different points, that's like straight out of Year 1. When, she has the wig on and you reveal she has the short hair, and then she's dressed like in the all black get up, with the fur coat and stuff like that. I'm like, yeah, that's straight out of Year 1. It's so cool how they kind of put those little Easter eggs in there, but they didn't make you feel like you had to know what those Easter eggs were in order to watch it. So basically you could aim it at the common person who had never picked up a Batman comic book, but just knew who Batman was, and it still works. That's one of the things that I think makes the movie a beautiful movie. So,
do you guys have a favorite line?
Favorite line?
It's hard to say.
I got one.
Go ahead.
Let's see. It was during the bomb necklace scene where like Riddler has already gotten out one riddle.
Yeah.
And the next one is more of a question rather than a riddle. But it's, if you are justice, then do not lie. What is the price of your blind eye?
Oof.
Love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Yeah. My personal quote is probably the quote that Catwoman says, if we don't stand up to them, then who will? Because the idea there is somebody has to say enough's enough. Somebody has to be willing to fight this, because if we just continue, because that's where part of the corruption was coming from, is the fact that, and then you find out later that, of course, Thomas Wayne had this fund set aside for was it renewal of Gotham. And it was the idea that everybody got their hands in it. And so after he died, everybody got their hands in it. And so they were all in on the take. And so everybody was manipulating everybody else. But it was like, you have to stand up against that. And so for Bruce, he had to stand up against his father's legacy. Like, he realized that the legacy he thought he was trying to fight for wasn't even there. Like, it was a different thing altogether. And so, not that Thomas Wayne necessarily was involved in it, because, of course, Falcone told him and, he lied to him. He basically said, he had me take care of this guy. And I told him that he told me to put the fear of God in him, and I ended up killing him. And sometimes you just got to do stuff like that. And I'm like, it's interesting the way he said it, because he never said that Thomas specifically wanted him to kill him. He just said put the fear of God in him. But then he left out what happened after that. Once he killed the guy, killed the reporter. And so then you get this whole thing where John Toretto is basically like, man, he's almost like, I almost felt like John Toretto was like Emperor Palpatine a whole lot. He was like, well, you knew this conversation was going to be a conversation we were going to eventually have. You weren't going to be a little boy forever, but don't let this eat you up inside too much, kid. It's okay. And I was like, dude, he is playing him so hard right now.
It's interesting, because the impression I wound up getting out of those conversations was, it's when it comes to some sort of mastermind, there's always has to be some sort of end goal. But for those conversations, it always just felt like Falcone was just covering his own skin, just trying to get the blame pointed at somebody else rather than himself. Because let's face facts, he and whoever are obviously to blame for the current situation that Gotham is in. Mm-hmm. But I was actually going to say, I thought it was so smart how they danced around Thomas Wayne, because as the movie was going on, I was actually really dreading the idea of them throwing out this easy answer that Thomas Wayne is corrupt, and that the Waynes are corrupt, and now that's on Batman's character and Batman's legacy for his family. I liked that they gave us an actually really nuanced answer, with Alfred basically clarifying everything.
Right.
I really, really enjoyed that, because it felt like it still paid respect to the idea of what the Waynes were supposed to represent for Gotham. Mm-hmm. And two, it allowed them to, even without meeting them, even without them having any sort of screen time, made them feel like that they were honest people that would have probably just made the same mistake that we had.
Right.
In the moment. And I really appreciate that. One thing that I also really appreciate is the way that the film ends on Bruce pointing out that Gotham needs more than just vengeance. It actually needs somebody to come along and care for it to help it rebuild itself, essentially. But I like that the underlying theme for that is resilience. And that's what Batman really can represent for Gotham. Because I remember in the Nolan trilogy, they leaned really hard into this idea that Batman represents hope. And I thought that that was nice, but I've never really seen Batman that way. Even in all the effort that they went into to say, oh, he's a symbol and he represents hope for the city. I've always felt that was more Superman's game. But what I really like, and what really feels like it makes a lot of sense to me, is that in this one, Batman represents the will to persevere in the face of tragedy. Batman represents resilience for the people of Gotham to hang on to and band together and overcome whatever it is that we've just suffered.
In other words, Batman fights and encourages others to fight the corruption and the things that are going on in Gotham City instead of just submitting to it.
He represents the will to more than just not give up, but the will to fight back, like you were saying.
Mm-hmm. Hey, if you wanted to create your own podcast, well, here's an opportunity to do so. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. So let me explain. It's free. Their creation tools will allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Can I just say, as a red-blooded guy, Zoe Kravitz definitely, because people say, well, who's your favorite Catwoman? Who's your favorite person that's ever played Catwoman like in live action? And for a long time, we had just Michelle Pfeiffer, and then of course Anne Hathaway came and played it during the Nolan trilogy. Anne Hathaway, just as far as from a character standpoint, and more importantly, also just from a physical standpoint, didn't feel like Catwoman to me in that movie. Michelle Pfeiffer at least felt like Catwoman. But Zoe Kravitz, it was something about not just, oh, she's a beautiful woman, because she is, but it was the way she moved. Like, they talked about it in an interview, how she would intentionally move, like she would study cat videos and watch cats and how they moved. And so there were certain times when she would walk, and there would be certain things in her walk she would try to do to emulate an idea of a cat, so that when she was portraying the character, whether she was in or out of the suit, there was always kind of this idea of, I'm quiet, nobody's going to notice me, I'm going to be able to get in and get out and do what I need to do. So I just thought that was a brilliant way of doing it. So I'm going to say Zoe Kravitz, my favorite Catwoman. So
Yeah, not bad.
Definitely. But yeah, I loved her in it. I think one of my favorite lines is whenever Batman says to her when they're on that deal and she's about to try to kick off the dirty cop, and he says, don't throw your life away for this. There are other ways to do it. She says, don't worry, babe. I have 9 of them. And she kicks the guy off and then jumps off the other side. I'm just like, okay. That's pretty awesome. I like that little nod into the whole 9 lives thing.
Yeah, I thought it was pretty good too. Shall we move on to the next one? To the next point?
Okay, so were there things we didn't like about the movie?
There were a couple of things I did not like about the movie.
You guys go ahead. I'm still trying to scratch my head on this.
I thought that the very last portion of the movie really kind of padded out the time and didn't really need to happen. But as some people were pointing out, like, it's a superhero movie. We got to have some sort of superhero thing happen. And so let's blow up the water barriers and just flood Gotham. I will say I am happy that we essentially got a "you'll never find all the bombs in time" Batman.
And then they blew up. Like, in the time it took him to say, like, it felt like Ozymandias from Watchmen. And then, like, the plan was already there going off. Like, before he even had the chance to do anything, it was already happening.
Mm-hmm. Right. Well, Riddler was expecting him to have figured it out by the time that they were supposed to go off. He said, as when Batman went to go see him, he was all like, you haven't figured it out yet.
You're not as smart as
you're not as
smart as I thought you were. Yeah. Which is a great Riddler line to say also.
Yeah. And so Riddler was expecting him to have found the bombs before, but he didn't because Batman. He's not perfect. But yeah, the length of the movie itself, like as far as all the way up to them catching the Riddler, I was like, cool, great movie. That's a good stopping point. But then they tacked on another, was it like 15 minutes or something? Maybe even more than that, 20 minutes of the bombs, and then Batman, and he has to go and beat up the Riddle gang. Mm-hmm. Hashtag what up Riddle gang.
I got a question in that.
Boy, the Riddler.
I got a question in that. When he injects himself, I'm assuming that's adrenaline that he's injecting himself with. Did any of you guys get any other feels on that other than that? Because I mean,
of course we did.
Because it's bright and green.
Because it's clearly a green liquid.
And any Batman fan instantly turbo speculates into Venom. And the one thing I think I need to point out, because I don't think everybody knows this, Venom was created independent of Bane.
Yeah.
Like in fact, there's a good chance that it existed long before he ever got exposed to it. But, that being said, it's just a tiny little thing.
Yeah.
I think we got more evidence to Hush coming in later.
Oh yeah, we got some pretty meaty drops that suggest Hush will be coming later.
Mm-hmm.
That'll be pretty interesting.
Oh, and the Joker, obviously.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, I wasn't a big fan of the Joker. It was just like
the little cute little
thing.
tease.
I was like, I didn't need that. I feel like that takes away from the Riddler. And it's just all like, I'm here because people expect me to be here.
Well, I mean, there was another one. There are other ways to have done that. I mean, I feel like they could have done it to work it, but there again, one of the things you mentioned that I'll get it. I'm gonna let you. I'm sorry. You go ahead and do it. Talking. I'll get into my things when you get done.
Yeah, I wasn't a big fan of that. I felt like the romance between Bruce and Selina was too quick. Like, obviously, people expect Batman and Catwoman to like fall in love, but it was just so fast. It was way too fast for my liking, especially considering that this is Bruce still like, my job is the most important thing to me right now. But I guess this lady's really hot and she wants to give me a smooch. So I guess I'll be okay with that. I would have preferred more build up and more suggestion towards a relationship rather than just like, hey, this is like the third time we've talked to each other. Let's make out for a sec. I'm like, okay. Wasn't a big fan of that. As far as like everything up to Riddler being arrested, I have like no problems with.
So exciting.
And honestly, like the whole flooding of Gotham thing, it doesn't actually bother me that much. It was just like, I feel like it bloated the movie and made it longer than it needed to be. And that's like one of my very few complaints. I didn't like Zoe Kravitz's dumb ski mask.
Yeah,
it was really dumb.
I kind of was wondering if at some point we were going to get...
It's got the little ends up like cat ears.
I kind of wondered if at some point we were going to get a better helmet for her, but I guess we didn't.
Yep.
Holy cow, that ski mask was barely on there.
I know, and it looked bad. I feel like we got to just be honest, and it did not look good. She looked better with it off.
Yeah.
And we were talking with our sister earlier, and she was saying it would have been good if they just gave her like some goggles to wear. Like maybe she could have started with the ski mask and then give her some goggles. That would have looked better. And then obviously there was some stuff that I was going into the movie expecting to not like, but then I ended up liking them, like the Batmobile and stuff like that. So those are really my, like, I'm pretty sure those are my only complaints, and it really doesn't detract that much from the movie itself. Oh, I also didn't like the way they were saying Falcone. They just kept saying Falcone. And I'm all like, that's wrong.
Batman animated TV series taught me a long time ago is Falcone. He is separate.
No, I like the idea. It's kind of like that meme of that kid at class who looks like he's about to burst. And it's me when they don't say E at the end of Falcone.
But I think that was pretty much it that I had as far as complaints go.
Okay. So I got a couple of questions first. Number one, explain to me why of all this great detectiving that Batman could have done, and I don't know Spanish that well, so I'm going to flat out say it. When they were talking about the whole ley versus law thing.
It's L versus law.
It's L versus law? Okay, I thought it was law versus ley. But anyway, yeah, it's like they did that with the whole Clue, and then like when Penguin is sitting there breaking them both down, like, wait a minute, you don't know the difference between law and L? I'm like, why is the Penguin doing better on this than the guy who's the supposed to be the most masterful detective ever, and a guy who's gonna eventually become chief of police one day? Like,
there you go. It's just assuming that he's perfect Batman already.
saying, like, I know he's not perfect Batman, but I mean, in that instance, that's kind of like a would he not know? Like, well, all this other stuff with the riddles that he was getting dead on, like that was the thing that tripped it up a bit. No, it didn't.
Yeah, man, he made a mistake.
True.
I think people forget that Batman can do that.
He made a few mistakes in the movie.
Yeah,
kind of humanized him.
Yeah, I mean,
but
yeah, you're not wrong there. I mean, like I said, him walking up in the club the way he did, especially at the first time he goes up in the club and he just starts brawling with people in the middle of the club. I'm like, would Batman do that? Like, would Batman not just try to create the element of surprise, like jump through? Like, I mean, you'd think Batman would like jump through like the top glass or something and like get people in disarray and just pick people off into mayhem, not just be like, hey, let me in. You know who I am? And I'm just like, okay.
Now you're complaining about the things that the other people were complaining about.
No, I'm saying this is something that I feel. All I'm saying is that was what I said earlier about that particular thing. It reminded me of the fact that this is year one Batman. I could understand. I mean, year two Batman. I could understand that the L thing didn't mess with me though, specifically the Spanish.
Because he's
thing.
built like a Terminator, my guy.
And also, Alfred told him it was wrong before.
Yeah.
It wasn't a Penguin. A Penguin was just one of them.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right. You're right.
Because they're all like, well, that maybe he's just bad at Spanish.
Yeah.
And then that's when Penguin was all like, yeah, this guy's real bad at Spanish.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah.
And then that's when the Riddler was all like, I'm super good at Spanish. You'll never find the bombs in time, Batman.
Yeah. Another thing I had a problem with was, okay, I understand Alfred lied to you. I understand he didn't tell you everything. Because a lie of omission is the same thing as a lie of commission. I get it. This man just got blown up at y'all's house. He's been in a coma for however long. Okay. He wakes up from the coma with you sitting there. And he's so mad at the fact that he finds out all this stuff about his dad that he's just like, you lied to me. You didn't tell me about this stuff. You told me this. You lied. I'm like, no. Hey, Alfred, how you doing? Glad you're awake, buddy.
Honestly, I feel like that's just going to be kind of different for every person. Because to me, that feels entirely believable when it comes to what we already know about Bruce Wayne up to this point. We already know that Bruce Wayne is clearly not in a good mental state. He's staying up pretty much every single night to the point that he needs to physically write down everything that he did that night because he can't remember.
Yeah.
He has definitely not figured out work-life balance yet. And he just found out from one person who is probably at the time seemed like the most direct and reliable source of information on the situation, that his parents were corrupt and that his dad ordered a hit on someone. which is directly contradictory towards Alfred telling him that, yeah, your dad was a good man. This is what I'm saying when I don't really like engaging that part of the conversation when it's when somebody comes in and says it's ridiculous that they would act this way. It's a movie. We have all of the reasons why they would act this way. It's not a question of suspension of disbelief at this point, just because you wouldn't act this way, or you think that person is acting in an outrageous way. It's that we can follow the line of logic and the line of evidence to show us this person is acting in a really outrageous way. Should Bruce have acted that way? No, it was awful. It was awful that he would treat Alfred like that right after he wakes up from a small coma. But is it completely out of nowhere? No, in fact, it's almost even justified.
Yeah, I still didn't like it. I'm not gonna say that what y'all say isn't making sense, because it totally is. But I'm gonna say at the time I watched it, I was just like, "What, man? Geez, dude, at least a hello. I'm glad you're awake." Before he proceeds to go off into, "You didn't tell me about my dad," that type of thing. Or, "You didn't tell me the truth."
Well, he was mad.
Yeah,
yeah.
He felt like he'd been lied to his entire life.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's all like, "Oh, you're awake? You're okay? Cool. I'm gonna yell at you for a second."
Yeah.
I've seen it a lot.
And I do wonder, like, for example, and here's the thing, because Jingles, you hit something on the head when you said they captured the Riddler, and then it felt like they tacked on another 20 minutes of stuff that just, they could have ended it right there. Because could you imagine the next movie starting with the whole, they found the bombs and the bombs blow up, and you could literally do your own version of the Long Halloween mixed with No Man's Land. Because then all of a sudden you start looking at the power vacuum that Catwoman talks about later when she says, there's going to be a power vacuum. People are going to be trying to get these positions. And so you have like the Penguin trying to get a section, and then say the Joker breaks out of jail, he gets a section, and then the Riddler gets a section. And then you start seeing these other rogues popping up, and they're slowly getting sections of Gotham to the point where it pushes Bruce to have to go find help. Because he can't face all of these people by himself.
And then Green Lantern shows up.
Well, I wasn't going that far, but, Bat family type thing. But, because like I said, I felt like when they did the flooding thing, that could have been a precursor to a No Man's Land type story, where basically it was Bruce against the multiple villains. And he has to try to find a way to deal with it, knowing he can't do it by himself. And so, of course, I kept wondering if they were teasing the little boy to be the Robin of this series. And I'm like, I don't know if they're going to spend that much time. I mean, they could, I guess, depending on how long it's been between the first two movies.
If past movies are any indication, they can just make anybody Robin if they want to.
Mm-hmm.
True. And so that's something that's where I felt like they could have chopped it at, we caught the Riddler, we thought everything was good, but obviously things weren't all that good. And then you just end it, like right there. Like, let the cliffhanger be the explosions or something. And let it end there. And then you pick up the rest of it there where, and by the way, just fun fact, the initial mayor wasn't black, by the way. It was the woman who was running against him who was a black woman who became the mayor after Riddler killed him.
Yeah, but he was corrupt.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. I'm just saying, like, the guy was talking about the mayor was a black woman. It was like, well, the future mayor, because at the beginning, she wasn't the mayor. But,
this is grasping at straws.
Well, no, I mean, she wasn't the mayor at the beginning of the movie.
Not even worth engaging.
Sorry. Okay. So that's
not even worth your time, Will.
It was a moment where that I had to put together and connect because I mentioned her, and then it was like, by the way. So, yeah. But no, those are the main things I didn't like because it had me asking a lot of questions. And, yeah, I wish they had cut it, like, when the bombs exploded. Like, that would have been a great cliffhanger. I feel like that's one of the big problems even with trilogies nowadays. You can't leave people with a cliffhanger hanger ending as much anymore. Because, I mean,
Right.
Endgame kind of, not Endgame, but Infinity War kind
Infinity
of
War.
did something that hadn't been done in a lot of movies in a while. Like,
Right.
and it's just like, why can't we have you don't have to have a cliffhanger where half the world is dead, but why not have really good cliffhangers that make you go, oh man, I want to see what's going to happen next. When is the next movie going to come out? 2025. Dadgummit. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think that more and more movies have been way more cautious about sequel baiting anything. And I mean, like, there would have been a chance that this movie was not a success, and it's been a success so far. And there could have been a chance that people didn't like it, and they wouldn't greenlight a sequel. But clearly, obviously, we're going to get a sequel. But while they're actually filming and making the movie, they probably don't want to sequel bait too hard.
I see what you're saying. I can see where that's the case. I just, like I said, I just feel like we need, especially in a movie like this, I feel like a cliffhanger ending would have been a lot better than we kind of had the cliffhanger moment. They dealt with it, and then now it's like, I did actually provide something for the city. Because you could have got that line at the end when he captured Riddler. You know, I feel like I provided something for the city, but it wasn't what I thought I was providing or something like that. But that's just me.
Yeah, that's just something that you would have preferred.
Right.
Right.
Totally understandable.
So, I do wonder if we're going to get the Court of Owls at some point, because with the mention of not only the Arkhams, but the Waynes, and then I do believe at one point they mentioned the Canes, the Kane family.
So, what? I don't want to rule out any of that, but I want to just point out something that's also very neat in regards to air quotes here, sequel baiting,
Okay.
or laying the groundwork for potential sequels. This movie, despite giving us all the time for this great mystery, it also went out of its way to make Gotham feel bigger and more history than before by throwing out basically what are all these other potential storylines. That's why I'm like, almost. This is interesting to me because I feel like for better or worse, Marvel has allowed us to basically sit there and just sit on like years at a time and speculate as to what the next movie is going to be based on its title, what we know about the cast, and what villains Marvel's been privy to let us know is in it. I like not knowing. I like not knowing for what the next film is going to look like, just based on knowing that, man, they referenced Hush. That maybe that was Venom that he injected himself with. Maybe they'll do Court of Owls. Maybe they'll do this, and it's all kind of feasible within this film.
Yeah, there's
Based-
a lot of different directions they could go.
Yeah,
But
and I like that.
It's also set up in a way that if nothing were to come from it, it's
Yeah.
still a nice self-contained
In
movie with some
previous
nice
films,
references.
it only ever felt like they could sequel bait one thing. And that's what the sequel was going to be. From Batman Begins into The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
We knew that we were going to deal with the Joker. But in this one, it could be the Joker. Riddler could come back. We could deal with Hush. We could deal with the Court of Owls. We may have Bane. It could be a bunch of different stuff.
They could be Clayface with no build-up at all.
It could be that too. That's what I'm saying. Like I'm actually pretty content with that. With that feeling of, man, I don't know. It could be any of those.
Yeah.
And
rumor has it.
rather than you know how we all see it in our YouTube feed, big yellow circle over a brick under Batman's foot, Clayface.
Question mark.
Yeah, I will say the HBO Max series that was supposed to be the Gotham PD stuff. They've talked about canceling that series and possibly going forward with a Penguin show because of the amount.
I've heard of that too.
The amount of fan love for Colin Farrell as a Penguin, which would be an interesting take instead of doing the cops and basically building up what happens. Because you think about the movie shows you like there's a need to rebuild. You know, the mayor says at the end of the movie there's a need to rebuild the humanity and the faith that our people have in our city. And so it's like it would be more interesting, I think, to do the cops behind the city of Gotham and how they rebuild, not only in spite of what's happened in the movie, but also how they rebuild it. They could have Penguin and other characters in it. I don't know how much you get Colin Farrell to do TV show type stuff or like the HBO Max, but I mean, I'm sure you could if you paid him enough to do it. I mean, especially if Jeffrey Wright, because they said Jeffrey Wright was going to be in, the show. And then we were going to get introduced to Barbara Gordon, which would eventually lead to the Batgirl movie that we're getting. So it's going to be interesting.
Yeah, dude, I still don't trust DC when it comes to any of their long-term plans.
Fair enough. That's a viable thing.
And I say that every time that it's brought up, that it's like, hey, they said that they're going to do this. They said that they're going to do a Batgirl movie. They said they're going to do a Poison Ivy movie. They say that they're going to do an Alfred movie. They say that they're going to do a Cyborg movie. Dude, we'll see. We'll see when they drop a trailer.
Yeah. Well, they're definitely not doing a Cyborg movie with Ray Fisher. That's if they're going to do it. They're going to do it with somebody else. Guy. Yeah. Unfortunately. I mean, he couldn't even get love in the Peacemaker series. And
I know.
That was crazy. Like Jason Momoa and I can't think of the guy who plays Flash, but those
Anyways.
two, yep, they got in it. But that was it. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, Will.
We've not talked about Peacemaker. Well, okay, sorry. I didn't know y'all were going to be watching it.
We haven't seen Peacemaker.
Sorry, I didn't know y'all were watching it. My apologies. So anyway, anything else you guys didn't like about the movie that you felt like could have been done better, or anything else like that?
I'm actually hard pressed to find anything that I didn't enjoy.
I honestly don't have very many complaints.
Yeah.
And the complaints that I do have, it's not something that really brings the movie down for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's just something I'm just like, I wasn't too fond of that.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I still enjoyed the movie as a whole, and it would still give it a high rating.
Okay. So now comes an interesting question, because I've heard a lot of debate on this online for the last couple of weeks, and I've tried not to engage it just because I didn't want to really engage it until after I seen the movie.
But here we go.
Well, we're about to. Rate the Batman movies with this new Batman movie in those entries. List the movies. And we're just talking about the live action stuff. We're not talking about animated. We're not talking about any other stuff. We're just talking about the movies themselves.
I wouldn't be able to talk about all the animated ones because I haven't watched any of the new ones. I haven't watched the animated Long Halloween because I don't expect it to be good.
Yeah.
Because, things happen.
You can't make Tim Sale's artwork look really good in the animated format. It's better. I'm sorry, it's just better in print. I feel like Alan Moore in those situations. Sometimes you just shouldn't be making live action adaptations, because part of what made the Long Halloween fun was the Tim Sale artwork.
Mm-hmm.
And you just can't really translate that into animated stuff. I mean, there's some art styles that don't translate well in animation. So, but anyway.
So you want us to rate the Batman movies?
Rate the Batman movies with this new installment in the can. How you feel like they order up.
Well, personally, I'll start at the top. Personally, I will go with The Dark Knight, then The Batman, then Batman Begins, then Dark Knight Rises. After that, then I would put probably 89 Batman, and then after that, probably Returns, and then Forever, and then Robin. I think that's all of them.
Stinky Bottom, Robin, Forever, Returns, Dark Knight Rises.
Okay.
You know what? No. Batman v Superman.
Oh, I forgot about that one. That one's pretty stinky too.
Yeah.
I put that
Batman
I
v
put that,
Superman.
before the Schumacher ones, but below the Burton ones.
Batman v Superman, Dark Knight Rises, Batman Begins, Dark Knight, The Batman.
The Batman is now number 1.
I think it might be my favorite, and I don't think it's like better. Oh, sorry, right. We're ranking them which one's objectively the best. You know what? Batman and Robin then on the top.
Oh, okay,
Do we
cool.
want to
There we go.
technically count the Justice League and Batman and Zack Snyder verse?
Dude, you already heard me throw out Batman v Superman. You decide that for yourself. You choose your destiny.
At least Batman's in the title of that one.
That's true. That's true. All right. So as far as movies go for me, I mean, I think honestly, Dark Knight Rises, the Dark Knight movie for me kind of gets near the top of that list. It's kind of hard because it's kind of between this Batman movie and that one. Just because I feel like The Dark Knight kind of handled Batman well, and you actually felt like Christian Bale was really doing well with both the roles, both the sides of it. And,
Well, I didn't know we were going to break down the reasons why we felt the way we did.
I just chose to. I'm sorry, I don't have to do that.
Let's go ahead and just prop up our feet, bro. We're
Okay.
gonna be here a while.
All right.
I'll take a nap.
See you on the other side.
And I'm going to have to say Batman and Robin is definitely on the bottom of my list. So then we'll go Batman
I think
Begins.
Batman and Robin is just objectively the worst Batman movie that we've had.
Yeah, I'll say probably Batman 66 movie. Then
I haven't seen 66 movies, so I can't.
you've
give
never
it a
seen
rating.
66? Wow, we need to.
No,
remedy
it's
that
that's an old movie, Will.
It is an old movie, but you still need to see it at least once for the campiness of it.
Oh, sure.
Beautiful and campy.
I didn't grow up with it. I need to
I-
make time for it and actually like find it and do that.
Do understand that thought process. So then probably Batman Forever, because I don't care how over the top Jim Carrey was and Tommy Lee Jones. Jim Carrey still, I enjoyed that version of the Riddler, even though it was campy as all get out, but I loved it. And then probably Dark Knight Rises, because I felt like there were so many other things they could have done with Bane before it was all over with. And that's kind of my ranking. But basically, yeah, top is a toss-up between... so technically, I guess for this, I'll say The Batman is number 1. The Dark Knight's number 2. And then we kind of go down. And the bottom movie, of course, Batman and Robin.
Mm-hmm.
That's my ranking.
Yeah, I think personally I still have The Dark Knight as number 1 for me. But I think just because my tastes change as I get older, maybe the Batman will beat it out in my heart. But for now, it's still number 1. But I will give the Batman a number 2 place.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see that.
Sounds fair. Sounds good to me.
By the way, another fun Batman fact. Of course, we've kind of discussed this offline. Keanu Reeves is doing the voice of Batman for the League of Super Pets movie coming out later this year. So Keanu officially can now say he's lent his voice to Batman, and so I think that's pretty cool. So whether he ever gets to play some really wicked version of Batman in the future, maybe he replaces, since they're doing this separate universe thing in the multiverse, maybe he replaces Affleck as the new Batman in the live action versions of the DCU versions of Batman, while Pattinson is doing his own separate thing in the multiverse over here that has no iteration or effect on the other stuff.
I think that would be kind of strange, but
Well,
Okay.
mean, yeah, we'll see. I mean, that's really all it comes down to.
I mean, look at Keanu's last movie. It wasn't particularly good.
Okay, wait. What was the last movie we're talking about? I'm trying to think of I thought the last movie was the last John Wick movie.
No. The one after that one.
Okay, what? Remind me.
The critically praised and overwhelmingly loved Matrix 4.
Oh, The Matrix. Yeah. Yeah, that movie. Oh gosh, I haven't seen that movie yet, and I don't know that I
Neither
ever
have I.
want to.
Neither have I.
Like, I don't know that I ever need to see that movie in my life, but
I've already said how I feel about The Matrix as a series.
Yeah.
And with the people that love The Matrix already saying they did not like 4.
Yeah.
And I'm like, cool. I don't need to watch it.
the first one was great. I didn't need the rest of them, but I mean,
The first movie's pretty good. It's got a lot of spectacle to it. And it did a lot for special effects. And that's about the level of praise I'm willing to give it.
I feel like it still kind of holds up, like compared to a lot of other movies in that era. I feel like it really holds up still, but not, like I said,
I
didn't
think
need the others.
Equilibrium's better.
Oh! It only hurts my
Smack
heart.
around.
It only hurts my heart because you're kind of right.
Smack around.
Equilibrium is like a guilty pleasure of mine. I've always loved that movie. Like Tay Diggs just being like, "Are you being emotional right now, John? Are you having feelings, John?" It's just like Tay Diggs just so maniacal in that movie. It's like, dude, when he finally
Very
just
good.
decides, he's just like, "Yep, I'm just going all in." He just starts like, he drops those. Oh gosh, yeah. That's one of these days we should talk about Equilibrium. We should just do an episode on Equilibrium.
I need to rewatch it.
That
And
would
yes,
be.
we should talk about it.
That would be the movie right there to talk about. But anyway, now are we gonna talk Turning Red next week? Because I know I've already got a date with my mama in Kentucky to watch Turning Red because she wants to see it.
I don't know.
We could look into it. Smarter and I want to watch it, so we just need to find time and a willingness to do it.
Okay, so yeah, well, definitely not as long as the Batman. And, you can watch it at home, so at least there's a little bit more comfortability factor. But, yeah, I understand making the time to do it. That's definitely an important part of it. But if we can, let's get together next week and let's talk about Turning Red. And then that way we can kind of talk about that. And I'm sorry, guys. I'm going to put this out there now. I'm sorry for those who aren't into, like, the controversy stuff. I just feel like since it's all over the place, we kind of have to at least address it. I'm
One
not trying to
second.
stay there. Oh.
I just want to say, it's not all over the place. It's where you found it. Because if it was all over the place, I would have seen it
And
first.
I would have even seen it.
Okay.
But I know what you're talking about because you shared it with me.
Yes. Yes, I did. So,
Will, try to go through all of your YouTube feed, and I want you to remove anything that has to do with having an upset reaction to something. Anything that's titled "Fans Ruin This" or "Disney Ruins This" or "Why did they make this person this?" Anything that has to have a clickbait title that's attached, anything that's rage bait. Just go through your whole feed, take a day, and just remove every single one that you see, and I guarantee less of that will come to you.
okay. I can definitely try that. I wouldn't be against it.
Yeah.
'Cause-
Now, this is also coming from a guy that every once in a while will type in, you know what? Let's see how mad people got when this new thing came out. Jingles knows this about me, that I sometimes have a fascination with outbreaks of rage.
Okay.
Or rage bait, but I never engage with it beyond, wow, look at all these people arguing about this. Do not get in it. Do not let my friend become addicted to anger.
Yes, I was heading that way.
Yep.
You did it. Do not allow yourselves to become addicted to water.
Oh, dear. Okay. I can see what I can do about that so that we're not going down
All
those
right.
roads on a regular basis.
From one friend to another. From one nerd to another.
Okay. Fair enough.
Yeah.
I understand because the potential is, if you're not careful, guys, and this is just something we've addressed before, especially when it relates to fandoms and especially when it relates to things like that. If you're not careful, you can become the thing you hate. And so, I sometimes I see things, I'm like, do I really want to talk about this? Do I really want to talk about this? Do I really want to talk about that? And there's a lot I do try to shove off, but this one was just very hard to shove off. it just kind of stuck with me for a few days, and I had to talk about it. So, but we try not to do that a whole bunch because the world already has enough angry people in it. We're not trying to become them, and we don't want to encourage that type of behavior. So, it's okay to laugh at them when they do stuff like this. When you see it, I mean, like I've said before, like I'll say 1,000 times again, Twitter has a bad habit of going off on stuff that most people don't consume. They just hear about it and hear the term outrage, and then they jump on a train, and they hook that train hard, and they're like, we're going to get on here, we're going to tell you how mad we are about such and such and blah, blah, blah. But they've not actually taken the time to watch said film, read said book, go through and do anything, and all this other stuff. They're just mad because other people
or
are
watch
mad.
that particular Netflix special.
Right.
Let's not forget, even like days before Shang-Chi came out, remember, and I'm looking over at Jingles, remember how many videos were popping up of this movie is going to bomb?
I don't.
I do.
Good. That's good. I remember seeing. I personally remember seeing a lot of them just declaring like it's gonna bomb. Marvel's gonna lose all this money, and
This is just an attempt for
the
woke
movie came out and it was
stuff.
great. It
Yeah.
did really well, and to the point that even Simu Liu has been dunking on those videos.
And I mean, I was clear about how I didn't think I was going to like the movie.
Right.
Then I was like, I'm still going to give it a chance. I gave Eternals a chance also. So,
And I'm probably the only one that actually really liked that.
yeah. And I gave Captain Marvel a chance. These are all movies that I was like, I don't think I'm going to like these movies. And then I watched them, and
Yeah.
I didn't hate any of them.
Right.
I just some that I didn't like as much.
Right. And that's the thing,
But
man. I mean,
regardless, watch out for rage bait. Don't listen to a guy named Yellow Flash
oh gosh,
because he is pure rage bait.
Oh, he is.
He loves it. But that's my advice for the week for the listeners as well. Watch out for rage bait.
Watch for Waspuses.
Watch the Waspuses. And I've got a couple other quotes from what you're talking about, bro, that I can't repeat.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But I'll repeat to you after we're done recording, which should be
just-
soon.
Right. But just the main thing is, guys, love what you love. If you don't love it, it's okay to not support it. Okay?
Yeah.
But don't feel like you got to go out and do like YouTube videos, Twitter mobs, and all that stuff, sitting there trying to get people to can come over to your side of the fence. If you don't have to like everything. That's fine. You don't have to not like some stuff that other people love. If you say, I'll watch it, give it a chance, and I love it, hey, there you go. You're good. So, I mean, just enjoy what you enjoy. And if you don't like something, you don't have to participate in it. That's fine. There's no rule that says you got to love everything that everybody loves. That's just reality. So, we have talked about the Batman today with Robert Pattinson and Zoe Kravitz and Jeffrey Wright. By the way, I just will say before we wrap this up, I do love the way Jeffrey Wright played the commissioner. Well, he wasn't Commissioner Gordon at this point.
No.
He's still like
He's on his way.
James Gordon, but he's
on
like,
his way.
I think my favorite part, you asked for a favorite line, and I think another one of my favorite lines is when he's like, you're going to take this key, you're going to go out the back door, but I need you to punch me in the face. It's like, why am I punching you in the face? You need to punch me in the face. Go out the door. And, like, it's just the whole thing that, even there's a moment where he's talking to Batman. He's just like, we've been doing this for like 2 years, and I barely know a thing about you. And by the end of the movie, he still really didn't know anything more about him. But it was the fact
but he trusted
that
him.
They trust each other. That's the thing that's so cool about it, because that's the relationship. It's like, I trust that he wants to do well by this city. I don't have to agree with his methods, but I trust that he wants what's best for this city. And Batman's the same way. I trust that he wants what's best for this city, and he's not corrupted. So, yeah. I mean, beautiful stuff. Man, Jeffrey Wright, not only could be an awesome watcher in What If, but he can be an awesome Jim Gordon. So, more power to him. I hope he continues to do it for as long as Matt Reeves and then let him. So, that'll be pretty awesome. But anyway, that is that on that for this episode. I greatly appreciate each and every one of you. Unless you guys got something to say beforehand, I heard the laughter.
Oh no.
Okay.
No. We I feel like we've good and tapped this out.
Okay, good deal. So, just wanted to make sure that I heard the last one. I was like, wait a minute, so something else needs to be said, because I'll totally shut up and let y'all say it.
I think we should be okay with letting a few slide.
Okay, fair enough. Very slide things. All right. So, thank you guys so much for coming on board with me again, Rascal Bros. I really appreciate you guys talking and sharing your thoughts on the Batman and everything. And I thank you all for listening. And most importantly, guys, do me a favor. Be blessed and be a blessing to somebody, guys. Take care.